collection at the RIT Libraries, is one of the world's premier libraries on graphic communications, history, and practices. And our growing library holds over 45,000 volumes and over 130 archival collections. That includes technology collection that focuses on preserving the heritage of letterpress printing. So in our press room, we maintain working printing presses and all the additional equipment that is needed for printing. And we preserve these objects through their active use in a variety of educational activities like classes and workshops and special events. And of course, visits from artists in residence. In 2014, the Cary acquired a rare and very important Hebrew wood type collection of about 40 fonts. And now this collection is fully processed and cataloged and ready to be used as a historical resource. Today, we are very excited to have with us Lynne Avadenka, who is the first artist in residence that hosted to work with this collection. Lynne is an American printer and artist who is known for her work that explores text and image, the physical and philosophical idea of the book, and the mystery and beauty of visual language. Her artist books and mixed media works have addressed the role of women from antiquity to contemporary times, classic contemporary literary text, as well as the shared origin of Jewish and Islamic cultures, and can be found in numerous international collections, including the Library of Congress, the Watson Library of Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Detroit Institute of Arts, the British Library, and the Israel Museum. She has won many awards and individual artists fellowships, and she currently serves as the director of Signal Return, a traditional letterpress print shop and community art center in Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you, Shani, and thank you, Amelia. And just a little bit of background about how I came to the Cary. I first learned about the Hebrew wood type because of Shani's presentation at the Hamilton Ways Goose. And I learned more about the Cary and their fellowship opportunity by attending several of their presentations, as well as a few by the co-curator of the collection, Amelia Fontanelle. So I submitted an application to their fellowship program to come and work with that Hebrew wood type that Shani just mentioned, which was accepted. And I'm not sure if I'm the first Cary artist in residence, but I'm sure I was the first and last artist in residence to come in the middle of their participation in a complicated campus renovation that involves putting their collection in storage. So I want to thank Steve and Amelia and Shani for their help and their patience and their good humor during the 2 weeks I was there working. And I'm here to talk about that project. But before I do, just want to share a few other works of mine that talk about that idea of text and image, and image being text becoming image, and working with language in a variety of ways. And I'm going to start with this, which is a piece called World Book. It's the entire text of the Haggadah, hand lettered on a cardboard globe. So really here, the text becomes part of the material object. The next couple images are of a book called Root Words, which was a collaborative effort between myself and between Mohammed Zakaria, who is an Islamic calligrapher based in the United States, collaborating together on the shared origins of our alphabets. We chose 7 words that were pretty loaded and important in both Hebrew and Arabic, and Mohammed lettered the Arabic and I did the Hebrew, and it talks about the beginnings of both alphabets and what we have in common. The next image is of a 5-part etching, sort of unrolled like a scroll, a format I use a lot. And in this case, I sort of invented an alphabet to sort of order the composition. So you can see that these ovals here sort of move across the etching, and the text comes from a philosopher named Edwin Jabez. And each of those little ovals stands for a letter of the alphabet, and the text reads, "For us, neither departure nor return, only the long, hard trek across the book." This next book is a short story by an American novelist, Bonnie Campbell. It's called The Solutions to Brian's Problem, and it's meant to be put together like a puzzle because Brian has this unsolvable problem in that his wife is a meth addict and he is worried about how to save the family. And the next image, when you put the book together, spells out a word that becomes perhaps a solution to the problem. So now let's get to the project at the Cary. I'm working on this that I'll go into more detail, but the idea is to examine the role of Jewish women in early Hebrew printing and to come to the Cary to work with the collection of wood type to create a suite of prints that will then be part of a show that I hope will happen in 2022 at the library of the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York. The library was recently renovated and they've added a gallery. And so I'm hoping that that's where my work will be. This was pretty much my, my home away from home for 2 weeks because I couldn't work in the Cary because they were busy moving things around. I spent time in the print shop of the art department and pretty much had it all to myself, which was great. These are some of the type specimens that Shani and Amelia brought over to me, all categorized, all cataloged, and all stored very cleverly in pizza boxes. And I ended up working mostly with the beautiful condensed wood type style. I have some Hebrew type in my own studio, but it's more square, and I don't have enough to actually do anything more than print like a single word or use it in a more abstract way. So the idea that I could actually work with this type and set names was really exciting. And I also had access to some of the other wood type specimens that I used in my prints. So this is a broadside that I did, and the text comes from David Gans, who was an historian and also an astronomer. And this is his words encouraging people to accept the idea of the printed word. People were very suspicious of this when type was first invented and shared with the world. And people thought that it was maybe suspect because it wasn't handwritten. It was like one step removed from the sacred text that people had grown accustomed to reading in their format. And so this is his urging people to take advantage of what printing would bring to them. And just to say that in working with this idea of women printers, a few things about how the idea of movable type changed the Jewish world, probably as it did the Christian world, but the idea that once something was set in type, it had a kind of authority and finality that things that were handwritten did not. So in a way, it kind of shut down discussion at the very beginning about certain topics in Jewish life. But it also had a practical application because unfortunately, Jewish texts were not valued by perhaps the larger community and often were burned or censored. So the fact that you could have multiple copies made it more likely that a text could be saved. So just to go back a little bit about the Jewish women that were involved in printing, most print shops were connected to the home. So it was very much connected to domestic life. And the Jewish women often took over when a husband died or a brother or an in-law. And so much of women's lives are anonymous. We don't know anything about them. And the interesting thing about these Jewish women is that they set their names in type. So we actually have a record of them being present in this printing industry. So what I sort of zeroed in on for my project was to take a passage from the book of Proverbs. There's a long poem that extols the virtues of a Jewish woman, and there's one line in there. She works willingly with her hands that sort of became the centerpiece for this project. This is a shot of the 12 women. This "she works willingly with her hands" is formed from 3 words, and in total are 12 letters. So I chose 12 women to highlight on these prints to go with the 12 individual letters that make up this phrase. And proof them. I would say, as a disclaimer, people with sharp eyes and knowledge of 2 languages might find some mistakes. It's always good, even though you're working alone in a print shop, which is very freeing, you should always have someone else proofread your work. This is well known. This is actually the second run of the prints using the other wood type specimens that I was allowed to work with. And so it's set up on this lovely SP20 in the print shop. The very first layer actually was a piece of wood that I ran through the press, and I tried to subtly shift the colors so that each print would be a little bit different. So that actually went down first. And then you can see that her hands, that next layer, went on top. I know some people do real strict measuring to figure out where things are going to go. I like to cut and paste and lay things out and see how they might land on the print. The "she works willingly with," I set that and then just did a proof and realized that it was way too big. So that did not end up in the print. And here you can see some of the names of the women, as well as in the larger letters. Those are the individual letters that make up that phrase I mentioned. I have become enamored of printing in a circular fashion, thanks to Jessica Spring, who invented this daredevil furniture. So you can see this is some smaller metal Hebrew type that I do have in my studio that is that phrase that I mentioned that's just set over and over as a kind of a repeat. And here it is on the press. And this shows you how it landed on the page with one of those larger letters holding its own on the bottom there. At the end of the first week, in the midst of everything that was going on, Amelia asked me if I wanted to come and look at anything or have a chance to look at some special things in the collection. So I asked her if I could look at the Moxon printing manual, which was really a wonderful thrill to be able to look at it and handle it. And have a close look at some of these amazing engravings. There were also 2 German type manual, type specimen books, and it was interesting to see in them a Hebrew lay of the case. And this is just beautiful printing. And then these are some views of the finished prints. So Estelina was a woman who was printing in 1477 in Mantua. And her colophon says, "I, Estelina, the wife of my worthy husband, Abraham Conant, wrote this book, Bechinat Olam, with the aid of Jacob Levy of Tarascon, And her husband added something. I'm not sure if it was in the book or in a commentary, but he said that Estelina wrote, and I'm adding quotation marks here, wrote the book with, and again, many pens, because they didn't yet have a word for printing. So they called it many pens. The next woman is Reina Grazia, but Juana Grazia Mendez. And she was the first woman to establish a press on her own, one of the few that established a press and did not inherit it from a husband. The next two are sisters, actually, Ella and Gela, who were the daughters of Moses and Ben Abraham. And they were setting type in Yiddish. And Ella says, "These Yiddish letters I set with my own hand, Ella, daughter of Moses of Holland. My years number no more than 9, the only girl of 6 children. If you find an error, please remember that it was set by a child." And her sister says, "Of this beautiful prayer book from beginning to end, I set all the letters in type with my own hands." This is Yehudi Rozanish, who printed in Lemberg in the 1700s. And another, Lemberg was quite the center for printing. So this is Chaya Tauba in Lemberg, and Pesel Balaban, also in Lemberg. And Devorah Ram printed in Vilna and had a very successful print business for many, many years, printed many books under her imprint. Chava Grossman, also from Lemberg. This person printed, Charna Meisels printed in Krakow. So this is the way they appear as the words that start over on the left and move to the right. So this is the word, and she worked willingly with her hands. And then if you remember those, a few of those engravings that I showed you from the Moxon book, before I came to Rochester, I made some photopolymer plates from those plates. And while at Rochester, I printed them on some very thin tissue. And then I started rearranging them with some of the Hebrew letters that I have that I already printed in my own studio. And I found these really great relationships between the size of the letters and the size of the printing plates. They just sort of tuck in kind of these unexpected ways. And these, I think, will be some part of the show at JTS Library, as well as the prints that I just showed you. You can see that there's some experimentation and playing around with another one of Jessica Spring's large daredevil circles, just using the Hebrew for its abstract, beautiful quality. You don't have to actually read it to enjoy it and find beauty in it. And I think those are the images that I'm sharing with you today. So thank you.